There I am. Hey, how you guys doing? Again. I'm Elo, grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I said that a little bit ago. As they're getting ready, I'm just kind of killing time, or wounding the time, not killing the time, wounding the time. Pastor Jeff, if you're watching, we love you. We all can say hi. He can hear you. So if y'all want to say hi to Pastor, go ahead. Hey, Pastor. If you guys are just tuning in, as they're getting set up, we're about ready to have our panel discussion on the holidays and everything like that. So I'm looking at the camera, making sure y'all are ready, but I'm not. Oh, yeah, y'all have to turn the mics on. I guess I could have done that for y'all. This is wounding time. You're on. You're on. You on? You on? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the panel.
Good evening, everybody. Go ahead. You can clap for them. They're great. My name is Ashley. I am a leader here at Recovery at the Rock, and I'm filling in some big shoes tonight. Pastor Jeff was supposed to be here doing this, and he needed me to help him, so I'm kind of here to help facilitate this, but they are amazing, so they really don't need my help. I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves. Dr. Valley, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Dr. Valerie Oji. I'm a faithful believer in Jesus. I guess recovering from what? Child of divorce, domestic abuse, and carb addictions.
I'm Carol McFarland, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, but first I'm a faithful believer in Jesus Christ. I guess I'm overcoming anything that life can throw at you. God's helping me to overcome, so.
Well, my name is Josh Barnes. I'm the director of the Human Development Center in town. I'm the psychological examiner, and so I spend most of my days dodging flying chairs. I work with people who have intellectual disabilities for the most part, and so I see a lot of people who come from broken homes, people who don't have family, and so you have to be in it because the Lord placed you in it.
So welcome them again real quick. All right, so we're talking about depression and anxiety during the holidays, and that doesn't just affect a certain group, because I think all of us at some point and some time in our lives have kind of felt a little dip in our emotions during the holidays. So we're going to kind of look at ways to cope and maybe what that might look like different than what we're used to, because it's not always presented the same way for everybody. So y'all can take turns. I'm not going to necessarily address each of you. But the first question I want to ask is, are people aware they are experiencing seasonal depression or anxiety?
Well, I'll start, and they can fill in the gaps here. I think sometimes and sometimes not. If you have had counseling, you've got some education, you've got enough self-awareness that you recognize the patterns of your depression, you might know that. Otherwise, you may not really understand what's going on with you during that time.
So what are the signs that I might be headed towards seasonal depression or anxiety during this holiday season? And does the weather or time change, does any of that help factor into those? Is there a commonality in it?
I would say depression is largely physiological. I mean, it may start with a thought, but it progresses to affect your body. When your cortisol level goes up, your blood chemistry, your body chemistry starts to change, you'll notice things. You'll notice the inability to sleep, or you'll notice the inability to focus, or you'll notice your mood drop. And the problem I think with our culture is that we think that, we talk about depression in such bad terms. I think our culture has taught us that having achieved the good life means you never experience depression. It's completely normal to experience a down mood, and that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. So I guess if there was a point that I would like to drive home is that make sure that if you do experience something happening, some physiological change with you, and you think, you know what, my life isn't what I'd like for it to be, join the crowd,
And besides, I'd like to add to that, besides the physiological, There are other components to it too. It might be what's going on in your life. It might be your choices, your actions. There are mind-body connections that we have as people, and there's also a spiritual component too. So one thing, when we think about depression, we think of SAD, and if we think about the symptoms, we might want to think about the changes. There's an acronym we typically learn in the health professions, SIGI-CAPS, and it's an acronym. It stands for sleep, stands for interest. It's a change in interest. There may be guilt. There may be changes in energy, where you just, you feel lethargic, you don't feel like doing anything. There may be changes in concentration, changes in your appetite, and then your movement. Either you have more agitation, or you're really like low key, which is psychomotor agitation. Or there might be suicide ideation, or thoughts of harming yourself. So I guess what you want to think about is, are there changes? Are the changes really a lot greater in intensity or in frequency? Or are they changing your relationships, your activities of everyday living? Is it creating problems for you, your work? Then you need to say, hey, what's going on here? Or other people might notice that with you. So those are things to think about. And also, there was a question about when it might occur. It might happen seasonally, and season could be the weather because it's colder and the days are shorter, or it could also be season because it's the holiday. And there are things that it might remind you of things that have happened in your life. There might be a loss. There might be something you're grieving. So it could be the season itself, weather season or climate season, or it might be holiday season. There's something called seasonal affective disorder. Those are things as well. And it might even be season of life. There's peri or postpartum depressive disorders. And you want to think about that as well. That's something pertaining to pregnancy. So people have depressive symptoms then. And I know this talk is about depression and anxiety. Think about depression, think about the word sad and what might be associated with that. With anxiety, think of the word fear and what's associated with that. Yeah.
So with that said, how can we prepare ourselves physically, emotionally, and spiritually for those types of situations? What are some things we can do?
Well, I think physically, the more activity that we can get, the better off we are. I'm a firm believer that exercise of any kind helps to boost the neurotransmitters that help us to sense pleasure and to feel pleasurable. And so I think move, even if you don't feel like it. We have to act as if and do in spite of how we feel, and our feelings will often follow that. I think we need to, I tell people, if this is a pattern for you, to put a reminder on your phone, put it on your calendar. At this point in time, I may start feeling this, and this is what it is. And that way, when you're in the middle of it, you'll get that reminder. You can say, oh, okay, that's what it is. And if it's like that, we can handle it better a lot of times. I think we can try to get as much rest as we can. Minimize our life of the stressors that we can. Simplify your life during those times. Try not to pile too much on, especially the expectations of others. I think draw closer to God. Draw to your support system and say, hey, give them a call and say, I may be needing you more. This is what's going on with me. Will you be available? What's the best time of day to call you? And kind of get prepared. Prepare your support system for that. I know I'm missing some, but y'all can go ahead and fill in what you're thinking.
I wanted to share a scripture, because I think during these times, too, it's really important to focus on the Word. I don't know how we get through anything without really focusing on the Word. The one I can think of for depression is Philippians 4:4, rejoice in the Lord. Again, I say rejoice. And then for anxiety, I like to think of 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And so I think meditating on those are very helpful.
That's really good. I have started taking extra vitamin D this time of year because I do suffer from seasonal affect disorder and anxiety. And so I know this time of year, because I don't have enough sunshine in my life, and it does make me cry, for those that don't know that, that I have to take vitamin D, extra vitamin D than I normally take. So did you want to add something, Josh?
I can. You know, when you look at the holidays, especially in our culture, they're very deep in symbol and setting. You're around certain people, you're not around certain people. There are certain symbols that remind you of the way things should, ought, and must be. And you tend to start comparing your life to what this image of what you think that it should be. And I would say that you need to make sure that you're around people, even if it's just, sometimes the best you can do is just say, I survived the holidays. Even if it's alone, thank God I came through it. But make sure that you're thinking, see, we get so wound up in the way I feel, You could look at your feelings almost as the check engine light on your car. Feelings are nothing more than an indicator of a thought. And when you have a thought like when you have a feeling like I'm depressed, well, what thought's driving me to that? Is it some symbol? Is it some setting? And am I viewing life right? Do I have expectations of myself that are too much? And I'll have to be straight with you. We're setting up here and we're giving this talk as though we know things, and I guess to a degree we do because we deal with it, but you're looking at people who deal with the same stuff you do because we're exposed to the same cultural expectations. Society says your life should be like this, and if it's not, then you have issues. Symbol and setting. Make sure that what you're comparing yourself to is something worthy of being compared to.
That's really good stuff, really is. A couple of things to kind of like prepare yourself and to give you some skills in that. If you love music, make yourself a playlist and turn the music on. Tell Google or Alexa, hey, play, a song list for me. Another thing that you can do is, I lost it. Well, if I remember it, I'll come back.
Diet's a good thing. Eating
Yes.
well, really
Yes.
trying to nurture yourself, being
Yeah.
kind to yourself, I know is one
Okay.
big one.
Okay. It did come back to me, thank goodness. Don't be afraid to see a counselor. Don't be afraid to go to your doctor and take the medication that you need. I like what Josh says, that, depression and anxiety are, to a certain degree, are normal. But whenever you're not wanting to get out of bed, you're wanting to pull the cover over your head, you don't want to talk to people, you're so anxious you can't sit still or can't think, then it's time to, talk to a professional about that. There's no shame in that. We live in a great time in history where people are embracing, getting support for that, and we do have great medications for that.
Yeah.
I always believe go to God first, but He gave us counselors. He says in the multiple of counselors there is wisdom. And so it's important to embrace that.
Hey, real quick, please make sure your phones are on silent. It is a little distracting. So I'm just going to ask one more time if y'all can make sure they're on silent, please. How important is it that I am with safe people?
Very important because you could place yourself in situations where you exacerbate some of the issues that you might be having, or things that cause you to break down more with those depressive or anxiety symptoms. You want to try to, sometimes for many people it's helpful to have a safe space where you can share your feelings. You can hash things out. It's almost cathartic. Some people, sometimes there's a tendency to want to withdraw for some and isolate, but really engaging and connecting with people is very helpful.
So you mentioned withdrawing. I have a child that is painfully introverted, and if she gets overstimulated, it can actually cause a little bit of emotional distress for her. So is it okay to be like, when you go to family, say, hey, my kid needs a safe spot to go retreat for a while? Is it okay to have those limits for yourself or your children?
Yeah, that's really terrific that you mentioned that, because that comes into some of what we were talking about as far as planning, really knowing limits and setting boundaries for the holidays to help to minimize or prevent things getting exacerbated. So yes, definitely.
Do y'all want to add to that?
I think that's a very important thing you said, setting limits. Many times setting a boundary feels like you're doing something wrong to someone else, but setting a boundary is very important. You know the people from your past who will draw you back into the similar behaviors again. So especially around the holidays when you have memories past with so-and-so and we used to go get drunk or we used to go take whatever, you know who to set boundaries with. And so I would say that with regard to being around safe people is knowing the people that you need to be with and the folks you don't. Mm-hmm. Because you are largely a conglomeration of the people you spend your time with.
And just as you mentioned, some of those people that you mix with, if some of them might draw you back into unsafe habits, whether it's use of substances or not being adherent to whatever medications have been prescribed or not seeing your therapist, and then you can have further problems as well. Or there might be interactions with things that you are taking and could lead to toxicity issues. You could end up in an emergency room. So you want to think about that too, as far as safety.
Just kind of add to that, if you do have to be around family members and you know that you might be tempted, you can take someone with you. Don't go alone. Someone that you know is going to help encourage you to say no to that, or to be the person that sits on the couch with you or whatever, so you don't feel lonely or isolated if they, give you a jab because you're moving forward and they're not. I think that's really important to do that, and then also have someone maybe that you can call in a minute, step outside and make that phone call if you don't have someone go with you, and then have an accountability whenever you get home or when you're leaving, call them and say, hey, I didn't drink, I didn't this, I didn't let my mom push my buttons, that kind of stuff.
So what if we don't have a safe place or safe family to be with? How do we prepare for that?
Well, I think that we have a lot of community projects and things that are going on in the communities, people that are feeding families, feeding the homeless. You can be involved with your church. Thanksgiving doesn't happen to have to happen on Thanksgiving Day. Christmas doesn't necessarily have to happen just on Christmas Day. You can do it with other people that are supportive. We live in a day where now I feel like if you just told someone, hey, I don't have anywhere to go Christmas, they may say, hey, come on to my house. You're welcome here. So you can do that. I had a friend one time that she would just, whatever it was, she would just invite people over. She couldn't be around her family, so she would just invite friends and say, hey, you bring this, you bring that, and they would have a potluck on those holidays, and that was always a lot of fun.
So what if I have lost someone dear to me recently, and this is my first holiday season without them?
Purpose and meaning. I would just say purpose and meaning. You have memories with the folk. I was talking with a guy at work today, and he was wanting to go see his sister or whatever, and I don't know. He's 20-something years old, and I'm thinking, I didn't know you had family. A lot of the people that I work with, they don't have a lot of family, and so they'll say they'll try to come across as though they got the same associations that anyone else does, and it don't hurt to be just real and be what you are. We're so addicted to pleasure in this culture, and we're so addicted to my life has got to be just like everybody else's, or I'm not good enough. It's okay to, anything that I say tonight has got to be received with some measure from someone who will admit that you have control over you have some control over your life. If you can look at everybody else in the world and say, you know what, it's cool that my life ain't like yours. I told the guy today, I said, you know what, when I was a child, I had 7 grandmothers, and now I'm down to 1, of no fault of my own. It's purpose and meaning. You just got to find purpose and meaning in the holiday that is bigger than the struggle that you're going through.
I think this question is really gets to my heart because I lost my mom around 7 years ago around New Year's. So every New Year's, I kind of think about her a lot. I know one thing that was very helpful for me was I think one time I use it a lot to celebrate her life. I wrote a poem to her one year. Another year, I just played all the 1970s music that she loved, and we just kind of jammed to it. So, so that's how that kind of worked for me. I know for some people it might bring more pain, but it just seems like with each year, it gets a little bit easier to handle. So
remember them in some way. Yes, honor
Yeah.
them. Okay. Carol, do you have something?
Well, yes, remember them in some way and try to find a way to honor them. I mean, they would really, I think our loved ones would rather us to be happy, even if we don't feel happy, to try to do things that can bring joy and light to the world instead of bury into our feelings. But, I mean, don't deny the feelings. But I think that we can, like, buy a gift for someone else. Instead of, like, for years when my mother passed away, one of my school teachers, her husband had passed away around the same time my mother did, but their birthdays were on the same day, my mom and hers. So I would buy her a gift on my mom's birthday. And, you know, she always said, "Why do you do that?" And I said, "Well, I'll tell you someday." But anyway, you can do that. You can, you know, set up a picture of them and include them. You don't have to forget them just because they're not there. A lot of times people will set up a picture, they'll decorate it for whatever holiday it is, and then sometime during the family time or during their time, they will light a candle and just say, "I love you and I miss you, and I wish you were here, but I know you are in spirit even if you're not in person," something like that. Used to we could let balloons go, but you can't really do that anymore. It just hurts the turtles, but find some way, to celebrate. So.
I really liked a lot of what you said, and because it rings true with the people I've worked with in my life. You know who largely, and this is not in every situation, people are not a monolith. You can't say depressed people are all XYZ, whatever. But you know who largely depressed people are? People who spend a lot of time thinking about themselves. That's true. Depression is also largely a focus, it's an obsession with the past. If you can make yourself hope for the future and focus on somebody else other than yourself. I can tell you one young lady, and probably in her mid-40s, and she's got OCD and spends the majority of the time in her room alone because if I were to go out with her and I would simply pump gas. If I were to get back in the car, she would douse my hands with isopropyl alcohol because she's so concerned with getting germs. And this is a different thing than depression, but the point is she's focused on herself. I can't get sick. It's all about me. If you want to notice when you're feeling down, notice the moment when you're feeling down, and think about who you're thinking of. You're thinking about yourself. Become outward focused. At the holidays, stop thinking about you. Think about the person somebody else who's hurting. How can I make the world a better place? How can I contribute?
So is that, Dr. Val and Carol, is that always true? Because I suffered depression and mine came out of nowhere, and I noticed when my bouts hit, I'm not thinking about myself, and it comes out of the blue. So can it also be a chemical imbalance that does not depend on you focusing on yourself, but it's actually a need in your body where you need that medication to regulate that?
Oh, yeah, that is so true. We talk about these mind-body connections. We talked about the physiology earlier, and also you're thinking about certain chemical messengers in the brain, serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine. You might have heard some of those. And so you're trying to shift the set point of the system back closer to normal. It's kind of like a thermostat, maybe it's too high or too low. You're trying to just create more balance. And so sometimes you just need a little bit of that help. You can, there are things that you can do as far as behaviors and actions and things that help to not exacerbate it, but it's very helpful to deal with that underlying physiological thing. And certain medications, whether it's antidepressants, and sometimes some of it can even be with foods.
Right.
Diet, and then like you mentioned, vitamin D, some think about supplements, some even try herbals, whether it's St. John's wort, whether it's some of the B vitamins, yeah, all kinds of things, SAM-E, all kinds of things people have tried. So to try to shift the thermostat and get that balance back to a point where you may or may not even necessarily need to take that anymore.
Right.
But
Just to qualify, I'm not saying that depressed people.
No, I know, but I wanted to give everybody
I'm not an
a
exceptionally-
wide view, not just a narrow view of it, and that's why I asked that question,
I'm not an
because I wanted
exceptionally
to,
selfish person, but I've been depressed as well.
I wanted the broad spectrum
Yeah.
up here.
It should be noted, there's a limit on what the efficacy of medications as well. I mean, largely, if you look at the trend of people who take medicine, I've taken medicines for mental health reasons myself. If you take them and you think, well, this is the source of my healing, well, when that stops working, as it usually does, they go to another one. Well, what happens when that one stops working? They usually go to another one. It's usually not just medication. It's medication plus my thinking. It's medication plus renewing my mind.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I was always taught that there were different types of depression, or it can come from several sources. It can be a biological, chemical. It can be associated with grief, which is a natural accepting of the circumstances of life, and that's a shift in your thinking there and what you expect. It can be anger turned inward. You can be blocked goals. You're wanting to accomplish something. You're trying really hard and you can't get there. And then, it could be, just your thinking. And those things could have been taught to you by your family system even. You don't even realize that you're thinking negatively or you're comparing or you're competing and that kind of stuff. And until you, really explore with a professional or between you and God and, your support system to begin to look at those until you can break those patterns. I definitely think that no matter what area or what contributor do you have of depression, that you can very carefully get stuck in that if you do not look at healthier ways to think and to live. And I think it does. It is. It is how you eat, how you take care of your body, the boundaries that you set, taking the medication, the people you're around, all of that. I mean, it all affects, and it can affect not only depression, but your anxiety level as well.
How do I walk with my children through this holiday season if my spouse and I are split up this year? And I'm going to add to this because the next question kind of goes with it. Or if there is tension in the home with the kids, what can my spouse and I do to make this holiday enjoyable for them? So maybe you're not split up yet and there's tension in the home, or you are split up and there's still tension. What can we do for the kids?
Well, I've talked a lot, but I feel like that we need to love our kids first, and we need to make it about our children. No matter what's between you and another person, you don't need to drag your children into that. And just make a pact with the other person. Whatever's going on between us, we're going to leave it alone until after the holidays. We are going to love our children the way that they need to be loved. We need to let them be children, and And I say you may that's not easy thing to do. It's easy to say, but it's not an easy thing to do. So begin your day with prayer. Say those SOS prayers. Just find a way to manage your emotion using all the tools that we've already given you tonight. You may have to use all of those in a given day to keep it not to stay out of your head and making this about you and your feelings, and make it about them and their feelings and their needs.
You don't want children to struggle, but the reality is they're going to.
Yeah.
Teach them to struggle well. If you have to deal with a split between mom and dad, teach them to love. If you try to fix all of life for those that are younger than you, you're taking their power away. Teach them to be strong, because life is going to present them with struggles that you've faced. Give them this is a holiday, son, but it's not going to be perfect because life is not perfect, but I know who is.
teach them reliance upon Christ when life is not perfect.
I would also add, too, that many times when situations are like this, we may say focus only on the child. I would say focus primarily on the child, but also care for yourself, too. And then sometimes in the midst of the hidden, conscious, unconscious resentment, you take certain actions with the idea that you're actually protecting the child, but it's kind of like a tit for tat. Sometimes it's a tug of war over the kids. Maybe someone else has got a new girlfriend or something or whatever, new hottie, whatever, and there's resentment. And there also, or you don't like certain things that there's a loss of control. There's certain things that your child is exposed to. And so you have to make a choice over and over that I'm not going to engage in this dance of anger. You have to. And I go back to the word. I think we should think of, there's a scripture I'm thinking of, Luke 6:32. But if you love those only who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. And in Romans 12:8, if it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men, even your ex or your soon-to-be ex. And then Proverbs 6:7, when a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. So if you think about that, okay, what I'm about to do, what I'm about to say, is that in line with this? Just take 1, 2, 3, 10 seconds to check yourself. I think that makes a world of a difference. And I think the one thing I also have to also state in that too, because a lot of times emotions are always running high, always think of what's allowable and not allowable by law. Well, you end up back in court over what you're doing.
Yeah.
So-
Can I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we've kind of taken the angle that there's animosity between the parents, but that may not always be the case.
That's right.
And so with that, I think that it's just kind of like branching off what Josh said, is teaching them to live in reality and let them know that it's okay to be sad and it's okay to cry and it's okay to miss. And validate their feelings. I'm sad too. I wish things were different. We've got to just accept what is today. So how can we do that? And, help your children to work through those moments and remind them those are moments. We're going to have hard moments, but we're going to have joyful moments too.
And just remember, this is my point of view, and this is what I tell my girls. It is not a competition between you and the other parent. The only thing that matters is that you love those kids. So they may have a better paying job. They may can provide them things that you can't provide them. Hey, kudos to them. Let them do it. You do what you can do. It's not a competition. So I wanted to add that because my girls know I can't always provide the best of everything, but I can give them the best of me. And that's all that they really need is the best of me.
Yes.
Amen. Good.
Terrific.
We're about to get to our last question, but I do want to remind everybody, I know it was in the announcement, so we are here Christmas Day that night. It is on a Monday night. We will be here for you, so you do not have to spend Christmas night alone. There will be some of us here, so please make sure you can get away here if you need to. If you're watching online, just make sure you know that we will be here. We will not be online that night, but we will be here in body if you want to come to the building. The last question is, what can I do with my extra time off?
Can
Don't jump at it.
you get away or drive to the beach? I don't know.
If you do, I will give you my number. You can call me. I'll go with you.
Well, I think, plan for that time off. Think of things that you may have always wanted to do that you haven't done. If you think, well, I might want to paint, you could buy you some canvases or ask for those things for Christmas. Write letters to your family members, people you love. Use that time wisely. Rest, read, listen to music, clean out closets. You guys, clean out the garage, I don't know. Just busy yourself, but make sure that some of it is pleasurable and relaxing, that some of it is productive because we seem to function a little bit better if we do something productive. Call your friends, those people that you haven't been able to catch up with in a long time. Plan a mini vacation. Do the things that you feel like that you're not able to do in everyday life that you wish you could do. Make you a list of those. Sleep late, stay up late, whatever,
I'd say choose your crowd wisely. If you look at Christ, when he first started his ministry, he had over 70 people. He narrowed it down to 12. When he was in the garden, he narrowed it down to 3. 3 guys he knew he could trust. You don't have to completely ignore social media over the holidays. It will dump you into a depression because the majority of it's fake. We are all pretending. Right now, we are all pretending. We don't feel like sitting here as prim and proper as we do, but we do because people are looking at us. Social media makes it worse. If you want to get depressed during the holidays, look at social media. When you spend your time during the holidays, spend it in a way that's edifying to yourself. And that don't take a crowd. It don't take a lot of money. Meaningful couple of folks.
And if you do feel that there is anxiety or depressive symptoms, or you've even been diagnosed, it might be a good time to take stock inventory. If you've had, how have the symptoms been, the things that have been prescribed, the things that you're doing, are they managing? What's your action plan? You might want to check, has anything improved? Has it been sleep? Has it been feelings of guilt, hopelessness? Has anything changed? Are you having physical symptoms of anxiety, like a racing heart? The medications that you're taking, are you having side effects to those, or are you feeling better? Some of them don't. Some of them take a couple of weeks to work. Are dosage adjustments taken? Are the things you take over the counter that might interact with what you're taking? How's your diet? Are you exercising? Acts of kindness? Are all those supplemental lifestyle things that you're doing that help to get the best out of those medications? You might want to take stock with that. You might have consult with that and see how you can optimize that. It might be a good time where you have some downtime to really reflect and take stock of things.
Look up the term positive psychology. Seriously, there's lots of things you can do. Just look up the term positive psychology.
And don't forget the word.
That's right. And I would say, set goals for next year. If you're sitting there and you're feeling not satisfied with your life at that point, whatever take a piece of paper and write down everything that you find acceptable about your life and everything that you find unacceptable, and put a line down and then begin looking at how you can build more of the acceptable things into your life, what you need to do that, and get you a plan. And if you need to talk to a guy about finances, we got one of those here, so.
I appreciate everybody being out tonight. I hope we have provided some useful information for you. If you need to talk with somebody about maybe having depression or anxiety, we are by no means counselors, but these counselors can help you. And if you just need to, talk to somebody, we will have small groups where you can talk in small group and share for a little bit. But thank you so much for being here, and thank you to our therapists.